I personally did not watch the full video. I saw the photos. For my mental health, I couldn't see another, person who looks like me die on camera. We already had the Ahmaud Arbery situation, Breonna Taylor, like all that happened in a span of weeks. And then George Floyd happened, and it was like, I cannot, for my mental health, I can't watch it. I've been hopeful and proud of the amount of people who have been receptive to some of the things that I've said on social media. I've seen like a shift in the Black Lives Matter movement, the connotation that it had. Prior, it was poorly received in America, especially. And now I've seen a lot of people open their mind to understand the perspective and where we're coming from.
Like Jacie, I haven't been able to watch the whole video. I didn't need to watch the whole video to know what happened. And I think if I was to, I think it's very difficult to sit there and watch a 9-minute video and think to yourself, you start thinking, this could actually have been me. And if it's not me, it could be someone that I know. There's every chance that at some point that my life could or may be taken away because of the fact that I'm Black. I think it's also critically important that we do this research, and that's why I've been really happy to see all these videos come out, links to go to, donations to make, because I feel that sometimes there is the sense that racism isn't a problem here in the UK, and we need to research for people to understand that it is. If you are born Black in the UK, you are less likely to go to a private school. You're less likely to get to a high-ranking position. You're more likely to get stopped by the police, but you're less likely to actually be stopped by the police and have something on you. You're less likely to be able to go to the places that you want to go to.
So I didn't watch the video. I won't be watching the video either. I just don't need that type of energy. Like, I know what happened at the end, and it's tragic. So I think, and for me, I think the most overwhelming thing was seeing the support from like all different races, all different people in positions of influence. I've never seen that before. A lot of the time, people just get on with their life, and as I said, it's sad, but we kind of just get on. It's just another Black person that's died. And I think, as I said earlier, because of the fact that everyone's locked down and this is the focus of their attention, and everyone's talking about it, and I think we've actually managed to get into the minds, as someone said earlier. We've got into the minds, and we've now got into the hearts now, I'd say, of some of these people. And so, it's been a lot, to be honest. It's been a lot. I have found myself a couple of days just getting a little bit overwhelmed and shedding a couple of tears, because it's been like, this is a struggle. This is a journey. This is hard. Like, we've been doing this for a long, long time.
I remember growing up in South Africa, and we moved there, I think, no more than like 4 years after the end of apartheid. And just having an awareness of myself and an awareness of things that was partly informed by class and socioeconomic status, but of course, largely informed by race. But feeling slightly, again, disconnected because I'm not South African. I'm Ghanaian British. And I don't think it was until I left that environment and then went to the US that I really developed my consciousness as a Black person. Because in the UK, I hadn't been in spaces where they were trying to talk about being Black. And those weren't the people that are around me. And then in America, there's obviously such a potent consciousness and dialogue, many logs around race. And so then being like, oh, whoa, I'm Black. And what that means, and being Black, but then also being like, still different. I'm still different in this context, because my family's like from Ghana, very specifically. We're not African American.
What the industry is beginning to do, shall I say, is they're beginning to change narratives. And that's one of the things I wanted to do. Obviously, knife crime and crime in general is a lot of the time portrayed as this is a bad man and he's done this. And I'm trying to flip that and say, no, this person was a victim before they became a perpetrator. And I think that's where we need to get to the human side of the story. And as we're having with other conversations where we're trying to get deep into why young people do what they do, and why, you know, even why racists do what they do. You know, people are not born racist. So a great story, in my opinion, was how would someone that was born into this world that had no essence of hate in them, how do they develop into someone that hates someone else? Like, these are the types of stories that we need to see, that development, that character development. Someone told me something once that really flipped the game for me, is that a lot of the top CEOs couldn't walk a day in your shoes. And so I know that we'd run them off the track if we needed to. If it was us and them on a 100 meters, we'd run them off the track in terms of what we've overcome and where we've come from. So that level of self-belief is what fuels you on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's why personally I don't see some of the problems that maybe other people see. And it's not to say that they're not there, but I'm tunnel visioned. Like I've got an outcome, like especially where I've nearly lost my life to being stabbed. Like I came back to this earth with a mission and no one's standing in my way.
It took me a while it took me my entire career, my entire life to get to a point where I realized how in dealing with that, not speaking out, doing what I thought was acceptable or would be deemed as acceptable for me to move up in my career, ultimately muted me and stripped me of my voice, of my identity as a Black woman. And I struggled for a very, very long time to find my voice, to be confident in my voice, to be a part of these diversity and inclusion conversations, because I'd never been exposed to that. I'd never experienced that. When Colin Kaepernick started to make a stand and using the national anthem as a time to do that, in my opinion, I understand his choice. I understand the logic behind it, but a lot of people took their own interpretations of it instead of listening to his message and what his intentions were, and decided for him what his intentions were and ran with that instead of actually listening. And being a part of an NFL organization at the time, it was very, it was a hard time. It was very divisive. There were, you know, the side that we don't want we don't believe in anyone disrespecting the American flag. I'm like, well, that's a symbol. That's not, I'll go into that later, but no one wants to disrespect the flag. And this is not the way to go about it, yada, yada, yada. And then there was another side where it's like, well, it's not about the flag. It's about racial injustice in America and how this country is built on, like, that is one of our foundational values, unfortunately.
When I first walked in, it wasn't something that I actually noticed. I kind of walked in, and I was almost like, I was so happy to be there, to have made it to the city, to be in a professional job. It wasn't something that I kind of thought about, and I didn't really realize it. But I think Jacie touched on it earlier, that as the months go on, you realize there are little things about yourself that you're not really saying. There are little things about yourself that you just unconsciously feel as if you have to hide it. I asked the partners if I could establish our ethnicity network, and that was the first network of its kind. I was still just the first year. Everything was very new to me, but I felt a responsibility to do this.
If anything, it just reminds me that, like, we have to keep questioning, educating, being open to different futures, and then seeing if we can act on that.
But I'm going to flip it as well. I think that we need to have more panels with white people talking about what it means from their perspective. And my friend was on Good Morning Britain. Essentially, that's what he put on to this host. He just said, look, you know, it's great that you're asking me, and it's great that you want to have all these Black people on the panel now. So what's it like to experience racism? But what is it like for a white person? I think it's also a very important perspective. And I personally would love to hear that. Yeah, I feel like, you know, once that conversation starts to happen, that there's a lot of healing that needs to happen from these traumas, and it's a long journey.
I have been doing a lot of reading and a lot of researching resources in regards to police brutality, police in general, policies, local policies. It's voting season in America, and while the focus is on the presidential election, I think it's also important to focus in on your state, officials, your local officials, because it starts there too. So doing my research to make sure I'm informed and sharing resources with others to I've read things that said it's not Black people's job to educate others. Google's free. And while that's true, I still, I don't mind sharing resources, because the more I share, the more likely someone might, pick it up and take it in. And I think that is, that's impactful too.
So I think my closing thoughts are probably best said in 3 parts. And my first part is on police brutality. We need to keep in mind that the police are brutal everywhere, and the police can be brutal to everyone. And what we need to focus on are the structural injustices that mean that more Black people have dealings with the police. And that starts from birth. It starts from when you're growing up, the facilities that are available to you, whether there's been investing in the facilities that you have to use, your schooling system, your education system, and the legal system. And I think that takes me on to my second message, which is a message to non-Black people. That what I've just spoken about are structural injustices. If you are not Black, then you are more likely to get to the very top of these structures. And these structures at the moment mean that I'm less likely to be able to afford the same chances as you. So if you get to one of those positions, then make sure that on the way you've researched and you've educated yourself to make sure that in the future, Black people are more likely to get to where it is that you've got to. And my final message: there's no room for complacency. There's no room to think that you can't do it. You have to make sure that you've made things easier than those who come after you. So I know there's a trauma and there's the burden, but this is a burden that we have to carry to ensure that people won't have to carry this again.